What's up guys, it's Ryan with the MXG channel again. Today I've got a little different video. Yes, this is a bicycle behind me. Yes, it's an electric bicycle, but this video is not about electric bicycles or electric bicyclists. This is all going to pertain to you motorcycle guys, you motocross guys, you off-road guys, you guys going to the track on the weekends that need a little transportation. I'm going to tell you guys how something like this could benefit you guys, the details of a couple different kinds of bikes, and then in a different video I'm going to go over the details of this machine and another option I have for you guys. But before we start with that, let's go a little bit back in history and think about the emergence of pit transportation. So obviously the pit bike craze started back in the early 2000s with the first KLX 110s. Well, it really started with the CRF 50s, but I mean, let's be honest, for most of us dads, those were just a little too small. But guys used to mod the CRF 50s and play on them at the track. Once the 110s came out, it was kind of the perfect pit vehicle. Most moms could drive it. It was relatively quiet, zero maintenance. Dads could take it down to the starting line. You could ride at the sign-ups, and obviously the kids have a blast on it, and it's developed its own racing scene, and the rest is history. But if you've been to races lately, you see this is starting to change, and it could be, it's for a variety of reasons. One, those pit bikes are getting expensive. The new fuel-injected Honda CRF 110s. What are they? Pushing 4,000 now by the time you get out of the dealership. So yeah, I mean, the kids love them. However, if you're not a kid that loves playing on those, they really don't serve any secondary purpose for an adult. And kids are getting hurt on those pit bikes sometimes more often and worse than they are on their race bikes, and it's just because of lack of suspension and things like that. And so if you've been to the track lately, motocross track, off-road races, GNCCs, hard enduros, you're seeing a lot more people commuting around the pits on bicycles. And this is for a few reasons, I think. One, the bicycle doubles as a cross-training tool. So a lot of these guys will ride the bicycles to try to get in shape through the week and stuff, race the motorcycle on the weekend. It's helpful. It's fun. It's being on two wheels. It feels like a motorcycle, to an extent. Second is they aren't heavy. They don't take up a lot of space in the toy hauler, in the back of the truck. You can carry them multitudes of different ways, whether it's on the roof or on a rear rack. Tons of different ways to carry those. Also, now at places like the GNCCs, we're seeing e-bike racing classes. So then you've got a whole nother type of racing you can do to kind of change and freshen things up. So I was amazed. I was at the Tennessee Knockout in August, and I was flabbergasted at how many people were cruising around on e-bikes. Pit bikes technically weren't even allowed, which might have been a lot of it, but there still were people on pit bikes. Everyone was on e-bikes, guys. You would ride back in the woods where the big hill climb was, and there would look like just piles of e-bikes laid over everywhere. And it makes sense. It's the best way, to get around. They're quiet, not quite fast enough or heavy enough to hurt anybody, to do any damage. They're not annoying. So it absolutely made sense. And it's the same way at the motocross tracks. You'll see more and more guys riding around, taking these things to sign up and things like that. However, that's when we get into more bikes specifically like this, because at the TKO, a lot of those bikes were Class 1 competitive racing e-bikes. We're talking about specialized turbo levos, intense tasers, bikes like that. And those are great if that's what you want. If you're using the bike as a cross trainer, if you're racing it, if you want undisputed access to any mountain bike trail, then that's great. That's the bike, those types of bikes are what you want. But what's the main issue with those high-end competitive Class 1 e-bikes? Well, it's the cost. So those things can cost anywhere between $5,000 and $14,000. And you know, if you're competing on them and cross training on them, and you have that extra budget, then great. That's probably what you need. A lot of us are maxed out just getting to the races and taking care of our motorcycles and gas and stuff. And an $8,000 or $10,000 competitive e-bike is not really in the cards. So here you are, you're at the motocross track. You need to be able to get around the track, go watch Junior at some different corners, get the sign-ups, all that stuff, but you don't want to drop $8,000 for an e-bike. You think it's ridiculous to spend more on the e-bike than you did the motorcycle that you went there to race. Do you have any other options? Yes, you do. I've got one behind me here, just an example. This is the Aoster motor S17, and what we've got here is a 1500 watt rear hub drive e-bike. Now, there are pros and cons to hub drive bikes. It all just depends on what you're doing with the motorcycle. But a bike like this will get you around the pits, it'll get you up and down the road, it's going to handle pavement, gravel, dry dirt, it's going to handle rolling hills. Everything you want to do on a hub drive bike like this, you can do besides climbing steep hills. Additionally, if you guys are familiar with the high-end bikes, they're all mid-drives with torque sensors, meaning you have to pedal to get any assistance. On a bike like this, you can pedal and get assistance, but you don't have to. For example, this S17 comes with a thumb throttle. I took that off and put a half twist throttle on. It just is more intuitive to me, and I find it a little easier to control the half twist throttle than the full on these mountain bikes. So I can sit on this thing, guys. I'm 220 pounds. I'm not a light fella by any means, and I can sit on this thing and twist the throttle, and it'll take me up any hill I've ever needed to get up at a motocross track thus far without pedaling. And if you put this thing in the lowest gear and pedal a little bit and help it, you're going to get up any hill at any moto track or event you would ever need to. You're going to be just fine. Now, there are tons of these hub drive electric bikes out there. There's some that are front hub drive, there's some that are front and rear. This one's a rear, but the reason I thought this one would pertain to you guys a little bit more is you don't see a lot of hub drive e-bikes that do have decent front forks and a rear shock. So this one is full suspension. You're going to be able to hit some, those roads can get pretty rough at the moto track, and who knows where you're going to end up if you're racing off-road, and this can handle all that. Another pleasant surprise on this Aoster motor S17 is the brakes. It's got dual disc brakes, and they actually feel really good. They have great progression. You're going to have no problem riding one of these around the track. Now, I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. You may be skeptical about the durability of one of these. Yeah, guys, this isn't a downhill mountain bike bashing Red Bull Rampage champion. But for what I need to do, get around the tracks, commute, this thing is more than up to the task. The forks, these KKE forks, are actually really good. It's got a shock on the back that somehow caters to my weight good enough. Like I said, brakes are good. It feels higher quality than some other e-bikes that I've got to ride. Also want to mention this front fender and number plate do not come on the bike. So if you think that's janky, guys, that was all me. It was kind of a joke. I had a CRF 50 front fender and front plate laying around, and it was raining the day I wanted to test this thing for the first time. And so I just zip tied the CRF 50 front fender and plate on there. And I don't know, it was just, thought it looked cool. I didn't just buy this thing and take a spin around the parking lot, guys. I put over 300 miles on this bike, and I've had 0 problems out of it so far. So the two big questions we always get about the e-bikes, range and top speed. I can tell you the top speed with me on it at 220. I've had this thing at 37 miles an hour. My cousin Mason's been on it. He's 50 pounds lighter than me. I think he's had it to 39. But guys, that fast on a bicycle does not feel good anyway. So I like to cruise around 26, 27. Feels really good on this thing. Range, I have no idea. That's obviously going to vary so much depending on what hills you're doing, or if you're on flat, or what you're doing with the bicycle, that it's hard to put a number on it. But I will tell you, I've got 300 miles on it, and I've never got it really below 40%. I've just never been able to ride far enough or had far enough to go that I could get it below 40%. So I don't know. I'm guessing a good average number might be 40, 50 miles or something. You should be able to get out of a charge, if you're kind of in the middle of what you're doing, some rolly hills. So guys, the entire point of this video was to let you all know, if you want to use a bicycle to get around the moto track, to get around the off-road events, you don't need to spend $8,000 to $10,000 for a competitive e-bike. You have options, and this Aoster Motor S17 is one of them. You're gonna pick this up for $2,000, and you're gonna be able to do everything you need to do on it without spending all that money. You're gonna have the throttle, you don't have to pedal at all, and then if you're going on a family vacation or whatever you're doing, you'll be able to just throw this thing in the back of the truck and take it with you. Anybody at all can ride them. I am going to do a more detailed video on this bike very soon, and I'm also going to show you a second option if you already have a bicycle laying around in the shed or something. Maybe you haven't been on that thing in years, about how you can do a similar setup to this without having to buy the bike itself. But let me just say, I've been very impressed with this Aoster Motor S17 so far. I'm going to put a link down below so you can click on it and check out all the specs and all that stuff. And if you're interested in getting one or getting another one, please use my links. It helps me out a lot. Also, I want to say that there is a complete e-bike section on the AOMC.mx website. It's the fastest growing section of the website. You're going to be able to find all the mountain bike stuff you need there as well. If you have any questions about this bike or about e-bikes in general, just leave them down below. I'd love to chat with you guys. Also guys, I want to just mention real quick that electric bicycles are aligning more so with the moto industry than they are the bicycle industry. At least that's how it's been the last couple years. Some of the bicycle purists and the bicycle shops seem to have shunned the e-bikes a little bit at first, and that's been the greatest thing to happen to the motorcycle industry, because we're seeing e-bikes in motorcycle shops. We're seeing them pop up from brands like Husqvarna. Intense Taser is marketing to the moto guys. We've got Gas. We've got KTM has heavy investments into the bicycle scene now, and we need that because these go hand in hand with motorcycles, guys. All right, guys, thanks for going down this path with me, and be sure to watch for my detailed video on the Aoster Motor S17 1500 watt hub drive e-bike, and another option if you want to build one homemade. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video.